welcome to the show, Queen's Conversations. My name is Lucia Dragos.
Hi everyone, I am Maryam Omar.
And we have today, well actually today the topic is create change. And we have today with us Jonathan Forgash, founder of Queens Together, Maryam, Shariat, Mudrick, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, from Astoria Mutual Aid Network, and we have Flame from Free Clothing Queens. I'll let them introduce themselves a little bit, but I just want to remind you we're live on Facebook and also on our channels from 3 until 3:30. So Maryam, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the organization and its mission?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. I'm Maryam, Shariat Mudrick. I'm one of the organizers for the Astoria Mutual Aid Network. We are a non-nonprofit organization that started back in March in response to COVID-19 as an opportunity for our neighbors to connect and take care of each other facing the COVID-19 pandemic, but more so beyond. Our hope is to be a place where we can really think radically about what it means to be a good neighbor and provide opportunities for neighbors to connect, to reimagine what that looks like, to live in a community that's rooted in dignity and solidarity and puts humanity at the forefront of everything we do.
Great. Flame, can you introduce yourself and the organization?
Sure, yeah. My name is Flame. I use they, them pronouns, and I started an organization called Free Clothing Queens just maybe a little over a month ago in response to this other clothing drive that I was volunteering for abruptly shut down. And I really wanted to keep it going. And I was also inspired by Love Wins Food Pantry, which I volunteer for every Friday, which is an LGBT-run food pantry. And I thought, why not combine the two ideas and make an LGBT-run clothing drive? And the idea behind it is we want to support the community, but I also want to help represent and bring a face to the LGBT, specifically the trans, non-binary community, put us in the forefront and go out and help people in the community that way. So that we were helping people in need of clothing, and we're also putting a good face and good name behind LGBT, trans, non-binary people.
Great. And Jonathan?
Hi, I'm Jonathan Forgash, the co-founder and executive director of Queens Together. We're a startup nonprofit, so not official yet. We are a grassroots restaurant organization association here in Queens. So we support and empower and advocate for the small business food community. But one of our core missions is also community service. And during the crisis, what we've been doing since we started in March has been providing food relief, not just through our own restaurants and organizations, but supporting other networks and food relief organizations throughout the borough.
Great. Jonathan, I actually wanted to start off with you and question you. How and when did you become aware of the obstacles and issues that these small businesses were suffering with, and how did you step the first step to solve it and to create a change with the community?
Sure, thank you. I was a chef and in the food industry for over 25 years. My company did catering for the film studios here in Queens and all over New York. And recently, well, last year while doing some humanitarian fundraising food projects, I met my now co-founder and partner, Jamie Fabian, who is the executive director of Sunnyside Shines Business Improvement District. And we combined the idea of her nonprofit, small business community, and community experience with my desire as a chef, because I know through personal experience what it's like to be a small business owner, what it's like to be hounded by third-party predatory vendors, corporations, apps like Yelp and Grubhub, for example, city services, the fines and fees and taxations that go along with it, and everything we talked about, which was how do we help this community? Well, it's everything we were personally familiar with. So our plan as of last September was to create this restaurant nonprofit association. And as we were gearing up to do that, early this spring, the crisis hit. And Jamie and I both started working remotely. My son, her sons were forced out of school to work remote. We all had this time, and what could we do? So we didn't have a name, we didn't have an account, we didn't have anything, but we did have a hustle and we did have our connections. So we started a bank account and a website and fundraising. And from the end of March till late June, we raised over $100,000. And we believe that the restaurants are the engine for nourishing communities with food and economic security. In this case, food. So we took those dollars that we raised and we paid restaurants to prepare meals at first for the hospital workers, the frontline workers. And we really quickly pivoted to feeding families and individuals facing real severe food and economic insecurity. You know, one or both parents have lost jobs, people were out of work, people were hungry. And we used those dollars to feed those people once again through our restaurants. And then since then, we've created a network of food pantries. At the height of the USDA produce program, we were helping to feed 7,000 to 10,000 people every week from Astoria as far south as Jamaica and St. Albans. And we're just continuing to grow both the Restaurant Association and our food relief outreach.
Great. So you gain support and fundraising. How does that work? Do you guys have a donation on your website, or do you guys sponsor it? Like, what exactly, how do people support, and how did you guys get that support?
So right away, this amazing web designer, we'll just call him Dave because he wants to be anonymous, stepped up and coded our entire website. And, you know, we had to start doing donations, and GoFundMe was taking a portion of our money away from us. So he created Queens Together very own version of GoFundMe. And now any restaurant or community group can start a fundraiser with us for just the cost of the credit card fees. And so we just did it, and it's just Jamie and I. And if it wasn't for we estimate 600 to 700 donors, volunteers, whether it was in person helping us distribute food or giving us their skills and time, we couldn't have done any of this. It's like what Flame was saying earlier. It's just a couple of people, but the silver lining of this pandemic is, you know, New Yorkers really step up. None of us could have done what we're doing today without hundreds of really amazing people who just wanted to get out and do something for their fellow human being.
Since you mentioned Flame, can you go next and share why did you start it and what challenges do you see in the community, and what are you hoping to accomplish with Free Clothing of Queens and with everything you do?
Absolutely. Well, before the pandemic, I'm always the kind of person that I like to stay really busy. I had 3 jobs that I absolutely loved pre-COVID. Number one, hairstylist, first and foremost, professionally, of 20 years. I was also working to become an HIV tester with ACQC Woodside, and that got shut down during COVID, as well as my salon business. And then third, I can't say the name of the organization, but I was working as a drag queen performer, reading to children at local libraries and trying to educate, you know, future generations of what it is like to be non-binary, LGBT, etc. And yeah, all that just went to a complete halt. And I just started volunteering, and I was inspired by the places that I was volunteering at, Free Clothing Green Cycle in Sunnyside, Love Wins Food Pantry. And I said, you know what, why don't I start my own organization, which is Free Clothing Queens, that combines the 2 aspects of Sunnyside, Free Clothing Green Cycle, and Love Wins Food Pantry, which is just putting the face of LGBT people, predominantly trans and non-binary people, right in the forefront. So we're out there helping the community, but we're also showing that, you know, we are good people. We're trying to put an end to the stereotypes that whatever people might think of us, whatever negative stereotypes they might have. So that was the idea behind all that. And I've never been busier. So aside from helping the community, it helps me just with my mental health and my mind. I'm out there doing things for the community. I'm doing things for myself. And yeah, I'm just keeping myself busy.
Actually, we covered one of the Drag Queen Story Hours from Queens Public Television. We did a show on it.
Oh, interesting. Very cool.
Yeah, from in the Jackson Heights Library.
Oh, excellent.
Yep.
Do you know who was the performer that day?
Yes, I forgot her name. I found her on Instagram, but I totally forgot. Nora, do you remember?
I don't remember, but I remember the outfit and the hair. It was beautiful.
Well, that's incredible.
Yeah. Actually, Maryam, I would like to hop on to you. Can you please tell us about your organization and what issues you've solved that you've realized that were suffering in a community and how you went on to save it? Oh, I believe you're muted.
Sorry, my daughter's in the background, so I'm trying to mute between. Similar to everybody else, we started the Astoria Mutual Aid Network, my husband and I, because I'm an event planner, so I'm out of work for who knows how long. My husband's a consultant. He can work from home, thankfully. And, you know, I had the opportunity to put my sort of brain power towards something, and similar to Flame, like, I don't think I would have made it past the, you know, through the last 7 months, even remotely healthy, if I didn't have this community that we're working with, and, you know, trying to play my part to sort of better the experience of my own role in the community, but also my neighbors as well. And I think what's really unique about mutual aid is most of us are familiar with charity, right? What it looks like for me to give you something because I have it and you don't. And that system hasn't worked for us very well in the past. It still doesn't address the core issues that are the reason that someone doesn't have what I have. So mutual aid is really radical because it thinks about that your struggle as my neighbor is also my struggle, and that my success is tied up in your success. And it's really powerful to think about, not just, we absolutely want to make sure people have food. We absolutely want to make sure babies have diapers, right? There's things we can do now to address needs that people have now. But what else can we do to make sure that 6 months from now, 3 years from now, 30 years from now, we're not in the same position where there's so many people that have so much and so many people that have so much less? And how do we really kind of equalize those things and reimagine what it means to be in community together? And what does it look like when we all have enough, and when we don't have to beg or wait in hours-long lines for food, or, you know, worry about, are we going to go to work or leave our kids home alone so to do school loan? Like, there's so much. So the Astoria Mutual Aid Network is doing a lot of that direct needs, taking groceries to people, making sure babies have diapers, making sure people who are sick have safe rides to the doctor's office, you know, working with our local neighbors who, you know, live in NYCHA communities who are being really underserved by, not only just by the city generally, but by systemic racism overall. So we're working on those things every week for hours a day. But then we're also talking about, what does it look like for us to be in a world where we actually don't need the city or the state to take care of each other? What does it mean to keep each other safe without these sort of charity mindset where I have, you take, and that's sort of the end of it?
How do people join? Sorry,
go ahead, Nora.
How do people join to help and support this organization? I know that you're doing a bunch of things, from like taking people to doctors and giving. How do they join?
So the best way to stay in touch and kind of learn about all the different ways to get involved is to sign up at our website, which is astoriamutualaid.com/volunteer. When you fill out the form there, we will contact you with specific tasks and errands that neighbors may need help with that you have said you're willing to help with. But then you'll also get the emails where we talk about other things that are going on in the community. It might not be specific task-oriented things, but it's you know, organizing we're doing to try to make sure that our neighbors at Astoria houses that are without gas for over 35 days have food because our neighbors are preparing it and serving it on the weekends. So there's some of those things that are not as distinct, but much more significant or much bigger in scale that you'll know about if you sign up and get our emails on a twice weekly basis.
Mm-hmm. Great. Flame, have you noticed, are there more people donating, or are there more people of need of clothes? What have you noticed, and did it change over time during the months that you're doing?
So Free Clothing Queens has only been around 1 month, but it does change drastically weekly depending on the location. We started out doing it at Traverse Park, but the park police immediately put a stop to that. They said they would turn a blind eye because they liked what we were doing, but technically we couldn't do it at the public park. They suggested we go to a public school on a weekend when they were closed and use that space because they don't have jurisdiction. So we started doing it there. And I noticed that people in Jackson Heights are really happy and willing to give, to donate clothing, but they don't take as much as, say, when I went to Corona Plaza, or when I've done a pop-up event at Pigeon Paradise on 69th Street and 37th Avenue, right off the BQE. There's a large homeless population there, day laborers, etc. They were really thankful, really happy to take clothing. So yeah, it really changes drastically depending on location. And my goal is, like I said earlier, to try to hit other locations that are maybe more in need, maybe collect from people here in Jackson Heights that are willing to give, but then go take it elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
We've sort of done a lot of that redistribution too, because Astoria in Queens is one of the more affluent areas. So a lot of the work of the Astoria Mutual Aid Network is actually, for the past 7 months, extended into other parts of Queens. Though I will say we have to sort of scale back to just Astoria because don't have as many resources as we did when everybody was home from work. But there is so much need in so many parts of Queens that don't have the same kind of energy to organize and rally your neighbors to help. So if anyone does have that capacity to move outside of their neighborhood, it really is so significant.
Absolutely.
And I want to ask everyone, but first with Jonathan, what do you think was the biggest challenge starting organization for people that want to start a change and they're passionate about an issue? How they can do that, and what was your biggest challenge? Yeah, you're muted. It's okay.
My apologies. They're doing some construction upstairs. So I come from a background of essentially catering, event planning, making things happen within 12 to 24 hours. So the challenge wasn't as severe for me, but what I find is when you want to take on something, you know, the pandemic hit and we just felt that we had to do something. So the first answer is you don't have to know everything. You just dive in. What's the worst that can happen? You're going to fail. Well, maybe you help 2 people along the way. 2, you can't do this alone. Find someone who does the things that you need to get done, who do them better than you could ever do, and team up with them. And that's going to be your partner for the duration of this project. And don't be afraid to ask others to help. Once again, it can't hurt. So just ask. You don't have to beg, you don't have to borrow, you don't have to steal, just ask for help. People are waiting to step up. And there was something that Flame said earlier that I wanted to comment on, which was, you were talking about how busy you are, but how good you feel doing this, I think you were saying.
Yeah.
So I will tell you personally that, you know, I'm terrified about people in my family getting sick and dying. You know, back in March, we were all stressed out. My son, who's 12, is now doing 7th grade from the corner of his bedroom. My wife is a public school teacher and I worry about her going into school every day. There's all these things to worry about, but people ask how I'm feeling. I feel great. I have a day job, so I'm lucky and I'm fortunate, but I have Jamie and I have hundreds of people to do Queens Together with and supporting restaurants and helping them get through this. Food relief, being there, actually handing out, meeting people. Personally, I treat them like they're my customer and I'm their chef and I'm taking care of them. You know, you're there with human beings, feeding people. It's a big thing. So people, this is to everybody else out there. If you want to feel good, if you want to feel better during this crisis, then just go do something. We've been saying that an act of kindness is volunteering, it's donating, it's making cookies for your neighbor, it's making dinner for your elderly neighbor who's living home alone. There's a lot of things you can do during the crisis to feel really good.
And you mentioned, sorry to interrupt you, but once in an interview when we spoke, you mentioned also you don't even have to leave your home to volunteer. Like
Right.
you said, somebody coded your website because many people are afraid to go out and do things.
Right. Listen, how many of us are working remotely for the first time and realizing we can actually do more from home than we can at our office? Our children are learning remotely. They're doing okay, but you're right. You can donate, you can code, and you can make phone calls, not just for the election, right? We could do this for each other and help raise money and support. We could help find Flame a van from a volunteer. I mean, Flame, I could reach out to our hundreds of volunteers and see if someone has a cargo van. All you have to do is get on your computer, get on your phone, and you can really make magic happen. And there's nothing better than helping people you don't know. I mean, why not, right? It takes very little effort to do a good deed in this world, especially in this day and age when we can do it from our desk.
Yeah, we were lucky enough last week when we did the Corona event. There was no way we could have done that without a car. And someone did reach out to us from 2 events prior and said that they would like to help out with that, but they might not be available so regularly. We want to be independent, which is why we have the fundraiser to try to get our own van rental, maybe twice a month if possible. But yeah, I mean, luckily there are a lot of people willing to step up in that case. What
was the biggest challenge that you faced? And what do you suggest to other people that want to start change? What do you suggest they do?
The biggest challenge for me personally was losing the fear of leaving the house because I was becoming a bit agoraphobic in the beginning, the first 3 or 4 months of this craziness. And then once I lost that fear and I learned that you could do things carefully, masks, social distance, hand sanitizer, all that stuff, I feel more at ease about that. But yeah, that was a big challenge. And also just storage. We haven't had storage. And when we first started Free Clothing Queens, I was maybe a little overambitious. I was going from people's homes, collecting donations and then storing it in my place until the day of the event. And then we had way too much stuff to carry. And it was just, my apartment was looking like hoarders because I had all this stuff. And I was like, you know what, I got to put a stop to this. So now it's kind of been fine-tuned. It's a little more organized. And now we only accept clothing donations the first hour of each event. We no longer pick up because that was becoming a full-time job in itself. And I find that people are still very happy to just come, drop off, and, you know, that's it. So yeah, we've been doing it that way, but, you know, little by little, we're just kind of learning as we go because this is still so new. But aside from that, yeah, not too many other big challenges. The neighborhood has been really receptive to us, luckily.
That is amazing. Maryam, what about you? What are some obstacles and issues that you had to go through? And also, what is some advice you would give to somebody who wants to create a change just like you guys?
So I think Jonathan said it well, is just to start where you are, right? If you live in an apartment building, knock on your neighbor's doors or slide a little note under their doors with your phone number. If you can go to the grocery store, if you know how to cook, if you speak a language or are really good with technology and maybe an elderly neighbor doesn't know how to set up their whatever to interact with their family members, there's always something that someone is going to have a hard time asking for, honestly, because I think they don't know to ask, right? We don't live in a society that encourages people to ask for help. It's seen as like a weakness, or it means you're not good enough if you need to ask for help. And I think what's really powerful about working in this sort of mutual aid mindset is the reminder that everybody needs help sometimes. My husband works, I'm not working right now. I don't have to worry about groceries. Thankfully, we can afford our groceries, but I still need help sometimes, right? There are still some things, like my daughter is also, doing school from home. She doesn't get the same sort of exercise and child interaction that she did when she was at school. So what are the ways that I can call upon my neighbors to try to address some of those needs? And so I think it's really about recognizing that what you have to offer, it doesn't have to be tied to money. We have a whole working group in the mutual aid network that's just about making calls to elderly isolated folks so that they're less elderly and isolated at home. On your schedule, from home, you don't need to go out of your house, you can do that. We have a number of volunteer opportunities like manning our phone line that you can do from home. And they don't require any sort of financial investment. You can do them from your pajamas, no one will know. And so I think it's really important to remind ourselves that you don't have to have the sort of final answer. You just need to be willing to take the first step. When you're on that first step, think about what the next step is. And then, like Jonathan said, and like Flame said, if you get to a point where it's too much, recognize that that's your limit and do what you can, right? No one's asking each of us to solve the problems of the world, but we are asking each other to do what we can, because we've realized and we recognize now in this as a really powerful example that we can't go through life alone or just in our very small communities. We really need to rely on each other, and we need to make sure that each of us has access to a job, access to good housing, access to healthcare, access to clothes to keep us warm, access to technology to be able to do our education. And so everything is just a little piece of this special soup that we're cooking together. And as long as we're all willing to do our part, we can. But it's hard. I mean, none of us will tell you that it's easy, even though it makes us feel good. I spend 40 plus hours a week on top of being a wife and a stepmom and a friend and all these things, organizing around the mutual aid. It's hard, but also when you have the opportunity, you have to do it, right? It's like there's really no other choice. As much as I would love to be working on my cross stitching.
Sorry to interrupt, we have 2 minutes left. And I was going to play a video, but I just like the conversation to continue a little bit more. I see that Jonathan and Flame are chatting in the messages. Probably they're shown on Facebook too. But Jonathan, if you want to ask Flame, or if Flame, if you want to share when it's your next event, just quickly, we have a minute left.
Yeah, absolutely. So next event is going to be this Sunday, the 25th, IS 145 from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then on Halloween day from 12 p.m. to 3 in Corona Plaza between 103rd and 104th. And then we're working on an event on November 7th. That one's not definite yet. When it gets made definite, the flyer will go up on our Facebook page, Free Clothing Queens. And real quick, Maryam, you said it best when you said my success depends on my neighbor's success. I've never realized that more until post the pandemic. Once I started feeling safe and comfortable enough to do people's hair, no one can afford my haircuts anymore because everyone's out of work. I was charging $100 a haircut in my old salon. So now I started doing pay what you can by donation haircuts for anybody who lost their jobs due to COVID. So again, I just like to stay busy and I like to help the community. So yeah, you can get in touch with me at Free Clothing Queens or Stylist Flame NYC on Facebook about that as well. And it's something so simple, but it really just makes you feel better. It gives you a sense of normalcy. Just something so simple like being able to get your hair done in this weird post-COVID world we're living in. But I don't want to take too much time. I know we're running low on time, so I want to pass the mic to whoever else wants to.
Jonathan, if you want to say something to close.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say queenstogether.org. If you'd like to learn more, if you're a restaurant that would like to join, you can join up there. If you'd like to donate, that would be great. If you'd like to volunteer to help outside or online, we would really love your support. And if you'd like to learn more about the work we do, please check out the site. We're starting a fundraiser tonight to feed frontline teachers and send food to the schools, to the teachers and staff, just as a little thank you for the work they're doing. That's our next project.
Great, and I think with that we are closing the show. I mean, the time went by really quickly, but please, for all the viewers, check out the organizations. They do amazing work here in Queens. So we'll see you next time, I guess, on Queens Conversations. Bye.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Together is on its way to becoming a fully fledged nonprofit 501c3. We're halfway through the process. We have created a grassroots restaurant association for businesses across the borough. We do advocacy and promotion and information and community service. We also do food relief across the borough. And if you go to queenstogether.org, you can learn more about the work we do. The more members we have, the stronger our voice with elected officials and vendors and third-party apps and fighting predatory practices. The more awareness we get, the more we can help communities in real need with our food relief efforts. And we ask for advocacy and we ask to help join the fight to help our neighbors across the borough.